My friends, have you ever loved someone so deeply that losing them felt like losing a part of yourself? When you emotionally erase, now imagine this. Instead of chasing after them, begging for closure, explaining your worth, you simply disappear from their emotional universe. You become a ghost, not out of weakness, but out of unimaginable strength. And when that silence grows so loud it deafens their ego, they'll come running back, desperate, haunted by the void you left behind. When someone physically leaves our life, we can still feel them in the little spaces between our days. A song reminds you of them. A street corner makes you think of their laugh. A certain restaurant brings back the weight of their presence. Even when they are no longer beside you, the emotional connection lingers like a ghost. Physical absence doesn't sever the bond, it sometimes even intensifies it. But emotional absence, that's different. Emotional absence is like cutting the power line. Nothing flows, nothing connects, nothing survives someone from your life. It's not about dramatic exits or angry final texts. It's about pulling your energy back, the energy that used to rush toward them like a river, caring for them, thinking about them, reacting to them. It stops flowing. Suddenly they're standing in the same room, but the warmth they were used to, the validation they once drank so easily, the access to your inner world is gone. They reach for you and grasp nothing but air. That emptiness, that sudden coldness is far more devastating than you physically disappearing. Humans are wired for connection. We are addicted to emotional responses. Attention, care, admiration, even arguments, they all feed our ego in different ways. When you give someone your emotional attention, you give them a form of power. They feel significant. They feel seen. When you remove that, you don't just remove yourself, you remove their feeling of importance. That loss cuts deeper than silence. It forces them to question, to doubt, to realize that their role in your life was never guaranteed. It shows them that their place in your heart was not invincible. Emotional absence doesn't scream, it whispers. It doesn't announce its departure. It fades quietly until one day they realize they're shouting into a void that no longer answers back. And that void is deafening because now they are left alone with the very thing they tried to avoid, themselves. They have no one to blame, no one to argue with, no one to prove wrong. Just silence, just emptiness, just a glaring absence where love used to live. When the comfort of your emotional presence has been stripped away completely, that the true regret begins to seep in. It's when they realize that it wasn't your body they needed close to them. It was your soul, your energy, your belief in them, your heart. And once you've reclaimed those things, once you've pulled them back into your own hands, there's no easy way for them to find their way back. They'll feel the absence in ways words could never explain. They'll finally understand that losing your emotional presence was the real loss, the one that mattered most. When we're desperate to be understood, the first instinct is usually to speak, to explain ourselves, to defend, to argue, to plead. We believe that if we just say the right words, if we just find the right sentences, we can make them understand our pain, our value, our truth. But the reality is, words rarely change hearts that are not ready to listen. No amount of explaining can make someone see your worth if they've already decided to look past it. In fact, the more you talk, the easier it becomes for them to tune you out, to take you for granted, to feel like your emotions are simply background noise. Though, silence is impossible to ignore. Silence creates a void that demands attention. It removes the option to argue, to dismiss, to manipulate. When you go silent, you take away the platform where excuses are made. You no longer feed their ego with your reactions. You no longer offer them the satisfaction of seeing how much you care, how deeply you're affected. And it's in that silence that the mind of the other person begins to spin. They wonder why you're no longer reaching out. They question why the constant flow of energy from you has stopped. Doubt replaces certainty. Curiosity replaces arrogance. Silence forces reflection in a way that words never can. It invites them to hear their own thoughts echoing in the empty space you've left behind. It makes them face themselves, their actions, their choices, without you providing them the comfort of your presence or the distraction of your emotions. Without your voice soothing or challenging them, they are left alone with the weight of what they did or what they failed to do, and that kind of loneliness bites harder than any confrontation. Most people are prepared for a fight. They know how to defend against anger, tears, accusations. What they're never prepared for is indifference. They don't know how to battle against silence. They don't know what to do when they're no longer the center of your emotional universe. And so, the silence becomes louder than any words you could have spoken. It becomes a mirror, showing them the true impact of their choices. Choosing silence doesn't mean you don't care. It means you've stopped wasting energy trying to prove your worth. It means you've realized your peace is more valuable than forcing someone to understand it. It's a declaration that you are no longer available for anything that doesn't nourish your soul. And in the end, it's that silence, the absence of your voice, your care, your validation that shakes them awake. It's the quiet retreat of your love that haunts them far longer than any argument could. They will remember the day you stopped explaining yourself, because that's the day they truly started to lose you. There's a certain kind of power in being available, in being the one who shows up, who cares, who listens. But when your availability becomes expected, when your kindness and love are taken for granted, it no longer feels like a gift. It starts feeling like an obligation in their eyes. What once made you valuable becomes something they assume they can access whenever they want, however they want. Familiarity over time can breed complacency. And the harsh truth is, we don't chase what we believe we already own. That's why becoming unreachable is not about playing games. It's about reclaiming your value by refusing to allow yourself to be treated like a given. When you stop being easy to reach, emotionally, mentally, physically, people are forced to confront what life feels like without you constantly within arm's length. And it's not just your physical distance that matters, it's your emotional energy that becomes scarce, your attention that becomes selective, your love that becomes a privilege, not a right. The more someone has to work to access your world, the more they value it when they do. When you're no longer the first to call, to text, to fix things, to smooth the rough edges, the dynamic shifts. They begin to realize how much they depended on your consistency, how much they relied on the comfort of your presence. And the absence of it creates a hunger that no one else can easily fill. Reclaiming your value is about recognizing that you are the prize, not something to be collected and placed on a shelf, but something living, vibrant, rare. It's about understanding that your time, your heart, your attention are not bottomless wells for others to drink from freely. They are treasures meant for those who have earned the right to them through consistency, respect, and effort. When you become unreachable, you stop pouring yourself into people who only offer you half measure. You demand through your actions to be met with the full effort you deserve. And the most beautiful part? You don't have to announce it. You don't have to explain it. You simply start living it. You stop over-explaining your boundaries. You stop justifying your absence. You just move differently with quiet strength and unshakable dignity. You become a presence that is missed, a light that is sought after, a standard that forces others to rise or be left behind. The right people step up and the wrong ones fall away. Those who once thought you'd always be there, who assumed you would keep giving without question, are now left wondering how they ever thought they could hold you without effort. And that wonder, that regret, that longing, it all begins the moment you decide that your value will no longer be something they can casually reach for, but something they must work and sometimes even fight to experience again. When someone leaves your life, it's easy to stay stuck revolving around them, replaying conversations, analyzing every action, wondering if there was something more you could have said or done. Your energy stays tied to them like an invisible string, pulling you backward when you should be moving forward. But the true breakthrough happens when you cut that string completely, not with anger or bitterness, but with pure, focused love. for yourself. When you stop making him the center of your universe and start putting yourself there instead, everything changes. Focusing on him keeps you trapped in a cycle of seeking validation. You live in reaction, waiting for a message, hoping for an apology, measuring your days by whether he notices your absence. But when you shift your focus back to yourself, you no longer wait for his attention to feel alive. You become the source of your own light, your happiness, your growth, your fulfillment. They stop depending on whether or not he regrets. They start blooming naturally from within you, without any outside permission. This isn't about pretending you don't care. It's about actively choosing to care more about yourself than about convincing someone else of your worth. It's waking up every morning and asking, what do I need today? What would make me proud of myself today? Instead of wondering what he's thinking, who he's with, or if he misses you yet. It's filling your life so full of purpose, passion, and new experiences that there's no room left for obsessing over someone who chose to let you go. When you shift the focus, you don't become colder, you become stronger. You don't shut down, you open up to a life that isn't confined by someone else's inability to see your value. You start creating new memories that have nothing to do with him. You meet new people, dive into new projects, chase dreams that once sat on the back burner, and slowly, without even realizing it, you build a life that doesn't revolve around what you lost, but around what you've gained. Freedom, clarity, power. And here's the real magic. People can feel that shift. Energy doesn't lie. When someone senses that you no longer orbit around them, when they realize that their name isn't whispered in your prayers, when they see that you are living fully without them, that's when regret sets in. That's when curiosity and longing begin to eat away at their certainty. Because nothing shakes a person more than realizing that the life they once took for granted is thriving beautifully without them. Shifting the focus from him to you isn't about revenge. It's about reclamation. It's about remembering that the greatest love story you will ever live isn't the one you have with someone else. It's the one you have with yourself. And the more deeply you invest in that story, the less you'll care about whether he regrets losing you, because you'll be too busy loving the life he no longer gets to be a part of. One of the most underestimated powers you hold is the power of mystery. When you were fully available, when you shared every thought, every feeling, every update, he never had to wonder. He never had to guess what you were thinking or where you stood. You were an open book. And while that showed your honesty and loyalty, it also made you predictable. Predictability over time dulls curiosity. And when curiosity fades, so often does appreciation. But when you pull back, when you stop offering every piece of yourself, something fascinating begins to happen. Mystery is reborn. Mystery is magnetic. It stirs something deep in human nature. The less he knows about what's happening in your life, the more he imagines. The less you reveal, the more he wants to know. When he doesn't see you posting sadness or anger, when he can't find clues to your emotions or your healing process, his mind does what every mind naturally does. It fills in the blanks. And no one imagines losing you in a calm, logical way. They imagine it in a way that gnaws at them, that creates doubt, that forces them to question if they ever truly had you at all. Mystery plants seeds of insecurity in places where arrogance once lived. Suddenly, he's not so sure you're sitting around thinking of him. He's not confident you're checking his updates, waiting for him to miss you. He starts to wonder if maybe, just maybe, you've moved on to someone better, someone who treats you the way he failed to. And whether or not you have, the beauty is you don't need to confirm or deny anything. The unknown is powerful enough on its own. You don't create this mystery by playing childish games. You create it by genuinely living a life that no longer centers around him. You become selective with what you share, with who you allow into your circle, with where you spend your emotional energy. Your silence speaks volumes. Your absence on his radar becomes deafening. Your growth, your glow, your peace, all of it becomes a quiet but undeniable statement that says, I am not where you left me. mystery forces him to confront a terrifying thought that maybe you've found happiness without him. Maybe you've built a life so rich, so fulfilling, that his return wouldn't even cause a ripple in your world. And that realization stings far more than any angry words or emotional goodbyes ever could. It's the fear that he didn't just lose you, he lost the chance to matter to you again. When you become a mystery, you reclaim your power. You stop giving away access to your heart and mind for free. You let your life speak for itself, and in doing so, you stir a regret inside him that no explanation could ever fix. Because mystery doesn't just make him curious, it makes him realize, too late, that he should have appreciated you when he still had certainty. When he finally feels your absence, when the weight of losing you becomes too much to ignore, he may come back. It might be with apologies, with promises, with late-night texts filled with regret. And in that moment, you'll feel a surge of emotions. A part of you may feel vindicated. Another part may ache. And a small voice inside might whisper, "See? He realized what he lost." But here's the truth most people miss. The comeback isn't the victory. His regrets isn't the prize. You are. The real victory was never about getting him to see your worth. It was always about you seeing it yourself. It was about the journey you took while he was gone, the healing, the growing, the reclaiming of your own power. It was about the days you chose yourself when no one else did, about the nights you wiped your own tears and built a stronger, wiser, more beautiful version of yourself from the pieces someone else left behind. That's the triumph. If you make his return the goal, you shrink your power back down to the size of his validation. You risk forgetting that you were already winning long before he noticed. Because the truth is, someone coming back doesn't erase the hurt they caused when they were careless with your heart. A few words of regret don't undo the lonely nights, the confusion, the doubt. What heals you isn't their remorse, it's your decision to no longer need it. When you realize that you are the victory, you stop looking outward for closure. You stop waiting for the apology to feel whole again. You stop needing someone else's love to believe in your own worth. You understand that their journey back to you is theirs to walk, but your journey forward is yours to protect. And sometimes the real power isn't in letting them back in, it's in realizing you've outgrown the place where you once needed them. The comeback can be tempting, even flattering, but don't let it distract you from the truth you worked so hard to uncover. You are enough. You always were, and you never needed someone else's regret to prove it. His coming back doesn't validate you. It only reveals what was true all along, that you were unforgettable, irreplaceable, and stronger than he ever realized. You are not the person who was left behind. You are the person who kept going, who kept believing in better days, who rose from the wreckage with more grace, more wisdom, more love, but now all of it, first and foremost, reserved for yourself. That's the real win. Not his regrets, not his apology, not even his presence. You are the prize. You are the comeback story. And the best part is, you didn't need anyone else to write it for you.